Hello.
Hello, this is Dustin Wilmus, so looking for Road Warrior Animal.
Yeah, this is him.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm here with my co-host Ton.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Good, good.
Well, do you have the time for a few questions today?
Yeah. 507, where code you guys?
We're in Mankato.
That's what I thought, yeah. Yeah, shoot, guys, let's do it.
Well, cool, man. We'll start out and kind of ask you how you guys got started in Georgia Championship Wrestling when the Road Warriors really kind of formed there.
Yeah, well, we originally were bouncing at a bar in Minneapolis called Grandma B's, and Ed Sharkey was the bartender, and Ed Sharkey was infamous for training Jesse the Body Ventura. And he asked us one day, he said, hey, guys, you guys want to get into wrestling? Try wrestling. We'll do another camp. You guys interested? And we said, man, I don't know, wrestling. At the time, we thought like everybody else. We played with wrestling, you know what I mean? Yeah. We didn't think that it was actually going to be serious. And one thing led to another. We went through camp. It was myself, Ravishing McBrood, Barry Darso, who smashed Demolition, Scott Norton, who was again NWO, and Hawk and myself. Now, if you can picture, at the time, I had a two-door Honda Civic. Weight limit of 750 pounds. Well, that was two of us in that car. Yeah. I shoved four guys into that car, and it was like that sumo commercial where you have 15 guys. That's what it looked like. Barry and I. Barry was about 330. I was about 300. We were shoulder to shoulder, literally. I had to tell him to move over so I could shift the gears. It was so funny, and we ended up doing that. We got lucky, and we were at the right place at the right time, and we were working at Grandma B's one night, and Ole Anderson came in to talk to us, and we were just kicking a guy out. And we had the room upstairs. That was the private room for when unruly customers would come in. We would take them upstairs and have a private conversation. And say, now listen, man, I don't come here and be on your couch or nothing like that. So you quit, doing what you're doing here in our establishment. Then we got the break and got down to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and you got to imagine. Here we are seeing all these guys for the very first time. We've seen them in the ring, on TV. But here's Paul Orndorff, Tito Santana, and Sergeant Slaughter, and Tommy Rich, and Dusty Rhodes, guys like that, the Iron Sheik, Roddy Piper, and we're going, geez, man, are we really here?
Whoa.
Yeah, and then hey. We walked in, they gave us the titles, and says, well, you're the champ, protect the belt. I said, well, we don't even really know how to wrestle. So it was kind of cool,
So did they put Paul Ellering with you guys to kind of get you through those early days, or? Oh,
heck yeah. We were two, the goalie called us, a couple of months ahead of buffoons. And at that time, we were just young kids out of the gym lifting weights, It always says, you two, you just go out there and look good and beat people up. He doesn't talk. It's okay. If you notice in the beginning, we do an interview. My extent of my interview would be, nobody beats the Road Warriors. That's it. That's all I'd say. And Hawk would go, yeah, nobody. And and that was the extent of it. And then all of a sudden they knew we had the gift of gab, we call it. And we started talking, and we started talking, and I would say the hard sell stuff, Hawk would say something off the wall, and Paul would wrap it up, and it was a nice chemistry there. When you guys left there and came back to Minnesota with the AWA, what was that like, working in your hometown? Oh, well, man, first of all, it's a shot in the dark that you make it. Second of all, now we're coming home. And all our friends knew how hard we had worked. All our friends knew we were away for a year. I was away from my son Joe for a year, because, I had to make the decision for him to make money, because I was divorced at the time. And hey, we came home. Tony Benicosta, who owned Grandma B's at the time, had a driver. He had an old school Excalibur, a real classic, and they picked us up. So we rode in the back of the Excalibur. It was in the summertime. And we got escorted to the St. Paul Civic Center by about 40 Harley Davidson. Oh, yeah. It totally took over St. Paul. And came in the back, and we got there about 2.5 hours early, and to our surprise, it was totally packed with fans back there cheering us, And then to go played our music at St. Paul Civic Center, they just looked at, I mean, we got a standing ovation. We were bad guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But we were just part of that new breed of wrestling at the time that people wanted to hear and wanted to see. So, it was kind of like the changing of the way the wrestling business was going to be.
Do you guys have any memories of working in the Mankato area at all?
Well, Mankato, I mean, we used to do the tour. We would do Rochester, we would do Mankato, we would do Duluth, we would do most of the smaller cities in Minnesota. But you gotta like Mankato because you do it during school because it's such a college town.
Yeah.
From Mankato to St. Peter, you got a few schools down there. So both my brothers went to Mankato. My brother John played basketball. My brother Mark played football at Mankato. So I'm really familiar with the Mankato area. I went down there for a bunch of basketball games and football games and stuff like that.
Well, maybe we can have you over this summer.
Oh, hey, man. I'd love to take a dive down. It's actually beautiful. Anywhere's nice in Minnesota in the summertime.
Well, then you guys were really kind of going through when wrestling was kind of changing into more of a family-friendly kind of sport. And then you guys went to the NWA after that when it shot through and with the popularity. You guys were with the Horsemen and Dusty Rhodes, as you mentioned, and all that. What was that like, kind of moving to that bigger arena?
Oh, that was crazy because you had the other company, at the time WWF was selling out with Hogan and those guys, and then we were selling out wrestling against Four Horsemen. Sometimes they would book the same town in the same day. I mean, Philadelphia has two arenas. We would be in the Spectrum, and they would be in the First Financial Building, whatever it was. It was a crazy time for the wrestling business. You know what I mean? It was you could see the growth. It was exploding off the map. You had, of course, you're only good as the guys you're in the ring with, and the Four Horsemen made it easy for us and made it easier for people to want to see me kick their butts. On Hawk and IRAP. Then you had guys like the Midnight Express too, and that we would wrestle, and so the company was full of good guys and good teams back then. Now the teams are like non-existent.
So then, what was it like moving, from that and being in that good situation, going on to the WWF, working for Vince? Was it better, worse? How did it fare?
It was better. I mean, it was a step up. Our first time going for Vince, we go to Madison Square Garden, we win the tag team championship belts, which I start the book off with, And, at the time, it was no different than, not that the NWA wasn't hot. It was like, how can I put it? Like the American Football Conference compared to the, National Football Conference. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like one or the other. Now we were going to the other conference. You know what I mean? So that way, it was great and it was huge. And of course, we got there. Most of the same guys who were working in the NWA were there anyway. So,
well, you guys were in the WWF for a few years. What was the reason behind your departure? I thought I read somewhere that it had to do with that ventriloquist dummy angle that they stuck you guys with.
Well, that wasn't the smartest thing that they ever did with us. But no, it wasn't so much that. It was so much that I think at the time we left, after that time, Hawk had already been suspended 2 or 3 times for substance abuse, and it was just not a very good situation for him mentally, physically, and for myself too. Because I was getting tired of getting 3 months off for his problem. That's the hard thing about being a tag team, is that one guy goes down, they both go down.
Yeah.
And of course, unfortunately, I was the brunt of that stuff. So,
did you notice throughout your guys' tenure that he was having problems with drugs and alcohol, or was it just something that started later on in your careers? Or
well, I mean, I knew he always liked to be the life of the party. Then it just got to be at a point where it was in excess. Time you put him in his room, and the next thing you know, 5 minutes later, he's back out. You put him back in his room, and he's back out. You put him in his room, and he's back out. Those were times that started getting more and more and more and more, and
Would you say that was common, like during the 80s, for wrestlers to be kind of wild like that?
The whole lifestyle at that time, that's what new guys come in and don't appreciate it. They weren't part of that growth. So they only know the wrestling business as being one level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were part of that growth and got to see, and you knew when you made it to the big time. And, and not everybody act like that. Just, a certain few guys that like to do things like that. I wasn't a partier like that. I mean, I have a few drinks here and there, but I wasn't a substance abuse guy, you know. But then again, I already had a family, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
How was it, I guess, moving on to WCW and that sort of thing? What made that decision for you?
Well, we were going to try to go to WCW and make that work. We also had our own separate deal in Japan. We were one of the few entities that had a deal with the Japanese. When we wrestled in Japan, we were considered Japanese talent. We weren't even considered American talent because we spent a lot of time over there. We just couldn't come to agreement with Eric Bischoff and the company on money, so that's why we never stayed in WCW.
Well, you guys went back to WWF after that for a while, and then you were teaming with some other people besides Hawk, and then he died shortly after that. Do you are you comfortable with sharing any details on that, or?
Well, I mean, I very rarely did a match without him. I did matches without him when we were doing that drunk gimmick with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was kind of a force. I thought that was an insult. I thought that was hitting a little bit too close to home. You know what I mean? I didn't think that was a proper way to do business. You know, it just Hawk finished. I always say, man, life's a race. And it's not so much how you run that race; it's how you finish that race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Hawk finished it well. I mean, he finished it well, speaking to young people, and his heart was in the right place. He was, you know, speaking. He was speaking at Christian events with me, and you know, he really was trying to make a difference and change his life around. You know what I mean? So, I give him credit for that.
Well, are you still wrestling now, periodically,
No.
or you're just?
No, I don't get in the ring anymore. I could.
Yeah.
I just don't get in the ring anymore. It's just not the same without having Hawk as a partner there wrestling. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to, you know, maybe trying to find a new tag team and maybe not so much a manager but a mentor to get them to the top. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
you know, being behind the scenes to give my knowledge. I mean, I've got 25 years of wrestling with top guys behind my belt that I give back to whatever company. You know, so.
So in all those years of work, what have been some of your favorite guys to work with, or favorite road stories, anything like that?
You know, they're all good. I mean, if you could picture one time, we would rent a van, and it would be the Steiner brothers and Luger and Sting and myself would travel in one van. I mean, so you can imagine when we stop at a hotel and Scotty Steiner just had his things for watermelon. Everywhere we went, he bought a watermelon. We were sitting by the pool, he's got a watermelon. He's cutting it up. He's got a big machete knife. I said, where in the world did you get that knife? Oh, I keep it in my bag, you know, because back then you could keep it in your bag, you know. And Rick Steiner's, you know, he's got a gun, like he's got like a 44 or something, and he's shooting street signs and shit. And I'm just going, Jesus Lord. You know, but it was good. It was fun. You know, it was fun times and good times back then. We were on the road a lot, though. We worked a lot of days.
What do you think of today's product compared to when you were in your prime in the business? Do you think it's worse off or better off? I suppose money-wise it's better, but maybe travel-wise or?
Well, I sit there and I think if we could have had what the opportunities are there today with YouTube, Facebook, all this stuff. I mean, I'm still extremely popular because of YouTube. Every match that I did, the AWA, NWA, WCW, All Japan, New Japan, you know, McMahon's got them all. And, you know, of course, WWF and WWE. Every time there's a tag team main event and going for the belts, usually I'm in something somewhere. So on his 24/7 shows, I'm getting shown all the time all over the country. If we would have had that now, it would have been just crazy. I couldn't imagine where the companies would go to now if they would have had that big battle for supremacy now instead of 15 years ago. You know?
Yeah. So do you think, as far as on the wrestlers themselves, do you think it's is it easier now to be a wrestler than it was back then?
No, it's never easy to be a wrestler now because now you got basically one dog you're working for, and you know, and the job security. You know, you got a contract. Anybody can let go at any time. You know, it's very much a yes man business right now, and it's hard for young guys to make it to the top and really learn. I think we're going to find out in the future. It's really going to be hard for the young guys to be the man anymore because they don't have the opportunity to wrestle and learn how to be the man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like they're thrown in the deep end almost.
Yeah, you're thrown into the wolves, man, and you got to try to make it, and it's not that way. Whereas before, we had guys like Stan Hansen that would take the time out to talk to us. Brody that would take the time out to talk to us. Piper take the time out to talk to us. because they knew where we were going. We were going where they were. They are, you know what I mean?
Do you feel like your relationship with Vince McMahon today is good enough to maybe get accepted into the Hall of Fame, or is that something that you'd be interested in?
You know, if it ever came about, I'd love to do it, you know, because I think I'd love to do it not only for myself, my family, but for the fans. I think the fans know we deserve to be there. That's no secret. I don't really have a relationship with Vince. I don't think he makes the decision anyway. He just got a committee, and they just said, "Oh, whatever, guys, you want, you know." Heck, I got a brother in that office, and that's like nothing, no help at all whatsoever. So I mean, you know, I'm getting in and working for them behind the scenes, which I always have wanted to do in the wrestling business. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, definitely something that you deserve, no question.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I made it very clear at all the promoters I work for, hey, when I'm done wrestling, I want to be behind the scenes to help the new guys. You know, I made that very clear all the way through to Jim Crockett, to Vince, to everybody. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about your book that you just released.
Yeah, I wrote a book, you know, The Road Warriors, Danger, Death, and the Rush of Wrestling, and it's doing very well. It's number 2 in sports autobiographies right now, behind Chris Jericho. But, you know, his book's been out for 2 months. And I'm doing well. I mean, the book's doing well. Amazon's happy with it, you know, and they're selling out like crazy. They just ordered a whole bunch more, and, you know, Barnes & Nobles are carrying the book. You know, I waited about 8 years to write the book because, honestly, I thought there were some garbage books out there. I mean, I don't know if you guys read any other books, but there were some books that were just, I wrestled, I did pills, and that was it. You know, I mean, you know, it was not very much about wrestling. It was about garbage, about nothing. I gave the people a chronological timeline what it was like when I first met Hawk in the gym, doing 315 on the incline for reps, and he comes and slaps me in the chest in the middle of my reps and goes, "Oh, you're Laurinaitis, yay, Hegstrand, what's up?" You know, and that's how we got met and got going on things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so from there on in, Ed Sharkey asked us to get into the camp, and then you know we just took off and went, and how we succeeded in the wrestling business. So it's a good chronological timeline. I don't know if you guys read the book, but it's a pretty good read. I'm really proud of it. You know, my writer, Andrew William Wright, did a great job. He was a big wrestling fan to begin with himself, and, you know, it's not a tell-all story. I don't rip on people, so it's something that kids could buy and read. You know, I don't rip on people. I don't call anybody names. I don't say this guy's a jerk or this guy's doing cocaine or nothing like that. I leave all that stuff up to speculation. Listen, man, there's the internet out there. People want to find stuff on people. They can find it easy. And most of the people already know.
Yeah.
And the only thing I am truthful with is that, you know, my partner had a little bit of a substance problem, not a little bit, but a big substance problem. And you can't hide it because every website you go on, you hear it. You hear it, you see it, and people say something about it, you know. So I said, well, you know, it's something I got to address in a book, and I address it. And
you got some book signings coming up, right? Do you have one?
Yeah, I got one. You know, March 17th, I'm in the Mall of America, right outside the Rotunda at the, you know, Sears Court, where Barnes & Noble is right there.
Okay, awesome, man.
That's at 6 o'clock. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm getting excited. Things are starting to rock and roll and move, and, you know, I'm getting calls like crazy. Got about 100 serious radio interviews and different other things, newspapers. Great guys like yourself helped me promote this book, so it's good.
Oh, well, it was an honor for us to speak with you, so no problem there.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, good luck.